So fast. I'm going to say so Fast and Furious. What's your favourite, Lucas? Oh, God. It's been a long day, Lucas. It's been a long day.
Oh, God. I do want to know, like, what Vin Diesel's favourite Lucas is.
So do I. I know his least favourite actor called Dwayne The Rock Johnson is, and it's Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Do you know about this?
Oh, yeah, of course. Like, they have, like, this weird feud going on that then they keep saying is absolutely fine because they both look at the, like, paychecks that Fast and Furious get them.
Yeah, they keep trying, like, The Rock keeps trying to squash the most one-sided beef in film history. The most depressingly one-sided beef in film history. But yes, today we're talking about Fast and Furious 7.
It's never goodbye.
Furious 7, along with, like, just demolishing every naming standard, like, that Hollywood had devised up until that point, is, by all metrics, a pretty decent film. It was well received by critics, rich practical effects, and the fact that it handled the death of actor Paul Walker with more grace and decorum than you'd expect from a film where The Rock elbow drops a Predator drone using an ambulance. That happens, Lucas. Like, you're not like a big Fast and Furious fan, right? You're not like me. You're not all like into the Fast and Fury-verse.
I'm not. I'm sure if I got into those films, I'd probably be, you know, all in. But I've just never really, like, sat down and watched them with anyone, which I think is, like, the ideal experience, right?
It is, yeah. So for me, I got into the Fast and Furious movies because of my brother. And my brother is no longer a fan of the Fast and Furious movies because he liked watching them for the cars, whereas I like watching them for the action. And as the Fast and Furious franchise became more about the action than the cars, my brother stopped liking them.
Like, that's the thing, is that I think I would like them because of how dumb and action-based they've got. But I watched that first Fast and Furious movie and was like, I don't care that much about cars.
How's it going, bro?
What's up, man? Welcome to Race Wars.
Great, thanks a lot.
Yes, and it's to the point where my younger brother would rewind one particular point in the first or second Fast and Furious movie. I'll find it and put the clip in to demonstrate where, like, Paul Walker's character's like, home straight, baby, and he activates, like, the nitrous. And just the noise of the engine in that moment, my brother would rewind it to listen to it because he's, like, one of those guys where he'll just sit and rev his car because he likes the noise it makes.
You know what? Fair enough. Like, I get it. There was some vibes around that time where, like, Need for Speed Underground and stuff were coming out, and that scene was, like, really popular. It's similar to, like, kind of, like, skateboarding scene, right, where just it's always kind of been around before and after, but that late 90s, early noughties, that there was just that moment in time.
My nerves start getting to me, and then I start thinking about I'm in a chicken soup.
Yeah, like I said, there was a moment in time where everybody wanted to listen to Bad Boy FM.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's like just the... And I say that a lot in videos without ever providing context. So Bad Boy FM, as far as I'm aware, is not a thing. But my younger brother would create, like, mixtapes and, like, CDs and stuff just full of, like, really, really aggressive, like, dubstep and hardstyle music, right? Do you remember, like, where they would take, like, just a song and just, like, up the pitch a little bit and make it go faster? And then that's the guy at the beginning going like, DJ, DJ, DJ!
Kicking the bass, I like it deep. I work night times, I don't sleep. Strive to be the best I can, don't judge a person till you know the man. Two brothers on the fourth floor when a Baron MC got rock and roll. I don't play, I ain't no toy, and that's because I said so, boy. The work is done, money in my pocket. I heard the jam, and I rocked it. Shake that ass, go berserk. Don't just stand there like a jerk. Come on, ask a lady, take a chance. Now let me see you dance.
Like, he loves stuff like that, and I'll never forget one time he picked me up for, like, Christmas. This is like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, on like the 20th of December, and he rolled up in his car with a full tinted windows, blasting Bad Boy FM at like maximum volume, just opens up the door like getting shithead. And he just drove, and he drives out in a super low driving position.
Oh, God.
He's great.
Wicked, original, muddy, all of them have been
It's not for me. It's
Just
not
like
for
Bad
me.
Boy FM. It's like, so the, do you know, like, have you seen like Ali G in the House?
A long time ago, yeah. Again, a moment in time.
Moment in time, yeah. And do you know what? That is a film I would love to cover on Wiki Weekends, because I would love to talk about that film in depth. But just like the culture that film is taking the piss out of like just obsessed with like shitty cars they put a body kit and a spoiler on. 'Cause that's the thing as well. It's always such a shit car. It's like a Golf.
At that point, you will tune in all your radios to the baddest speed garage station and crank up the volume to the max. This will bring out the guards. And at that point, we will use our cunning to overpower them. Bundle!
Right?
But that's the thing, right, is that you can easily upgrade that to be ridiculous for like 20 grand, whereas to upgrade like a supercar, you've got to have the money for the supercar, and then you've got to also spend a shit ton of money for each individual part.
You do indeed, yes. Well, I guess it's similar to like remember those like things you'd see advertised of like build a replica of a battleship.
In every issue, you receive high-quality model parts and learn about the Mighty Hood's fascinating history. Part 1, your model components, only 50p.
In like 50 weeks by paying like £2 for this magazine, and by the end of the year you paid like a couple £100 to build like this model that's like this big that you could have bought for like £30, but you didn't have the £30, but you'd have £2.
Yeah, and I think as well some people really like the kind of almost sleeper build mentality of having cars like that, where you think, oh, look at this like beaten up car from the 90s that's going to do nothing, and then it, goes 0 to 60 in a second.
Yeah, like my mum and her partner are into this sort of thing, so my mum watched these videos, so hello mum. Like when I like visit home, because my mum marshals at race courses and stuff, sometimes wearing like merch for the channel, which is weird. So if you ever see like a lady at a rally event wearing a big Wangers Inc t-shirt, that'll be my mum. Right?
Yeah, because wasn't there a moment where there was like big Wangers Inc logos in just like a random race rally somewhere?
Yeah, I got the I'll put like the I'll go grab it, one sec. I fucking got it here, right? Right, just in the other room, like I have like my shelf full of like personal effects, so it has like things from like holidays and gifts from family and friends and just mementos from times past. And yeah, like Lucas, you alluded to the fact that there's a big Wangers Inc logo at a random event. So it was the Alan Healy Memorial Cadwell Park Stages that happened on Sunday the 3rd April 2022. And this is the official programme from that event. It cost £3. And if you look, there are some sponsors at the bottom here. I'll try and zoom in. One of those sponsors is Big Wangers Incorporated. And my mum, due to her connections to said event, did get me a full-page ad put into this programme. And it simply says, Big Wangers Inc. Professionally unprofessional since 2017, and has a QR code. And if you scan that QR code, it just takes you to the YouTube video for Africa by Toto. That's all it does. And that was just in every programme for that event and on a fucking billboard. And periodically during the event, they would just say, we have to thank one of today's sponsors, Big Wangers Incorporated.
Man. Like, fair play. That's great.
Do you know why? Because it was funny. And it helped out, apparently, it's a memorial event, so it was like for some dude who unfortunately passed on. Oh yeah, my mum's involved with events like that. And sometimes when I go home to visit my mum, like her and her partner, we'll go onto YouTube and just watch cars driving.
Fair enough.
Yeah, let's see, some people like it. Like, that's the thing, some people into that, right?
Yeah.
Just some people really like cars, like a lot of people in my family do, and that's how I got into the Fast and Furious franchise. I didn't like the cars, I like the action. But yeah, we've not finished with the intro yet, Lucas. So, in regards to the stunts in the Fast and Furious franchise, the Fast and Furyverse, perhaps the best stunt in Furious 7 was almost cut from the film in its entirety for a very stupid reason.
Okay, so like obviously it happens in films like all the time where different things get cut and stuff, but of course we have to get around to the very stupid reason.
Yes. So the stunt, first of all, is probably one of the most impressive stunts in the franchise. And this is a franchise that has a lot of stunts, because the Fast and Furious franchise gets a lot of flack for being stupid, but one thing I'll always give it credit for is that a lot of its stunts are accomplished practically. So they will use CGI for some parts of it, but when you see, for example, a car being thrown out of a plane, they really did throw a car out of a plane.
There's 3 camera flyers, all with parachutes and helmet cameras. We're free falling at 130, 140 miles an hour, and we have 2 cars. So there's 5 things flying around and a helicopter.
There is like a few videos on YouTube that's like a mini series of just, it's about like invisible CGI in movies, and it blew up because it was a very well done, like, you know, few videos. And I think it was like Fast X that they picked on, where just, oh yeah, this scene where there's like a giant ball of death rolling around Italy or something. We did this all completely practically. It's like, no, you didn't. That's CGI.
Yeah, and invisible CGI is just a thing that's become very prevalent because CGI is really good, really cheap, and really handy for, like, you know, production, because it allows them to make changes on the fly. Like we talked in a previous video years ago now about the making of, like, Endgame, where so much stuff in Endgame is CGI that you'd never notice. For example, the Captain America fight, where Captain America fights himself. You probably watched that thinking, well, okay, there must be some CGI there, because obviously there's a stunt double that they had to hide, right? It's not just that. The bridge they're on, that's CGI. The building they're in, that's CGI. The shields in each Captain America's hands, also CGI.
Yeah, and you would never notice. The only thing that you would immediately assume is, yeah, of course they probably had a double fight in Steve, and then they swapped roles, and then they've, like, you know, tried to interpolate both footages together.
Yeah, and it's way more involved than that. Like all the time travel scenes, the space suits they're wearing, that long travel through time, that's CGI. They're all CGI.
Those suits were not finalised until after shooting had happened.
There's not a single real costume any actor's wearing in that scene.
And I'm not really bothered by that. I think, like, fair play, if that's how you want to make your movie that way. But to then actively lie and say that the CGI wasn't used is when it becomes a problem. And I think one of the most recent examples of how egregious it can get is that in the behind-the-scenes footage for the Barbie movie, they CGI'd in fake, like, non-blue screen stuff to pretend like it was shot practically.
Okay, so I didn't know that.
Behind-the-scenes footage.
So that's new, Lucas. You may have just got a fact-themed video made there. I hadn't heard about that shit. That's wild. That's next level.
But wait, if these scenes were filmed on a blue screen, why does the behind-the-scenes footage show it as an in-camera effect? Holy sh!
You can see behind-the-scenes footage where they're talking about how practical the movie was, and you can see, like, matte lines around them, which means it was on a blue screen.
I can't wait to see the behind-the-scenes of how they made that, right? How much deeper does this go? We'll have to talk about that another day. Maybe, like, a Wiki Weekends episode on the Barbie movie. Or the Barbenheimer, like, phenomenon, where it can, like, we can go into more depth about that. But the specific stunt we're talking about today is in Furious 7, possibly the most, like, impressive stunt in the film, as mentioned, and it was practical. There's some CGI, because there always is in, like, most major motion pictures these days. But it is where Paul Walker's character, Brian O'Connor, runs along the back of a bus as it's going off a cliff and then jumps to safety. That is a real bus going off a real cliff and a real stuntman. Like, the most CGI there is used to hide the fact that stuntman is not Paul Walker, because Paul Walker was dead.
He is right on the back corner of the bus as it drops 150 feet to the bottom, and now he's in the air, you know.
We obviously had all the safety you can do. He was cabled, but he was really running on it. It really went off a cliff, and then we really took the bus and dropped it off of another cliff that went on forever and ever.
Yeah, that's like weird things to get around, right? It's just...
And that's another thing they got a lot of props for as well. Like, the CGI they used to create the digital Paul Walker is terrifying. And a lot of, like, the tools and techniques they use for that are now being used to resurrect dead actors. Because initially it was just used to, like, you know, well, he filmed some stuff, and we want to honour his legacy by allowing his character to complete their arc.
Hey, thought you could leave without saying goodbye.
And one of the things that they did that's really insidious when you think about the implications of it is comb through all the footage they had of Paul Walker and then create a digital likeness that was like programmed to follow like just rules imparted to it from that footage. For example, like the CGI model they had would breathe and blink like Paul Walker did.
It was vital for us to constantly reference footage from the previous Fast and Furious movies, not only to keep the nuanced detail and unique physiology of Paul, but also to keep the integrity of the character, rather than use artistic interpretation or another actor's interpretation of Paul's performance of Brian.
Yeah, and then they used that and CGI'd the face onto one of his brothers, which must have been fucking weird, right?
Yeah, I mean, props to them for making it work, but then there's like, actually, there's just that other weird side to it. It's like, where's the cough before this becomes creepy rather than impressive?
Yeah, it's like you essentially cut off Paul Walker's face and put it onto one of his brothers and made them complete the movie. And as mentioned, like, a lot of that technology is now being used in altogether more seedy ways. Like, with,
yes,
like the rise of like putting digital actors and likenesses into movies and adverts and, like, you know, fake ads, and there's deep fakes and fake movie trailers and stuff on YouTube, right? Like, anyone out there who's trying to Google a movie trailer recently, if you've been fooled by the fake movie trailer made by like an AI studio that's just farming that shit out.
I haven't yet, but I do often come across like the ones where it's just the weird like fan made, like, oh, here's the trailer for Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland and like fucking Kraven the Hunter crammed in there and stuff, and it's just a mishmash of just all of the different like spun universe stuff that they threw in there as well.
And there's an artistry to that. There's a charm to it. Like, it has like the same level of charm as like a textbook that someone's put pictures of their favourite actor on in school. It's altogether more insidious when they're using like a tool that exists to just scrape the internet for content it didn't create.
Yeah.
To fart out a digital facsimile of it. And it's like, yeah, I've absolutely fully support every actor who's like immediately rewriting all their contracts. Like, fuck that. No.
Yeah, exactly right.
Like, you are not creating a digital facsimile of me that you can just torture forever after I die.
Why not, Karl? Give you a little bit of money now.
That's always the thing as well. It's like, it's a little bit of money now.
So it's...
We've talked about that in the past, like, numerous times, like, in regards to... And it's been happening as early as, like, the 90s and the early aughts with Jet Li. We talked about Jet Li, where Jet Li turned down a role in the second Matrix movie because they wanted Jet Li to go in after, like, the film had finished and just stand in front of a green screen, do every martial art move that he knew, so they could create a digital version of his character. And then just from that point onwards, anytime they wanted a Jet Li type character, they could just create a digital model that could fight like he did. And Jet Li was like, why the fuck would I do this?
Yeah, why would I get paid once and then never get looked at ever again because you've just got a digital version of me ready?
And that was like the early aughts. But, you know, it's a conversation for another day and one we've actually had. So go check that out if you're interested. But bringing it back to that stunt in Furious 7, you might think, well, they're going to cut it because it's stupid or it would have cost too money. And it's like, no, this is the Fast and Furious franchise we're talking about. Money was not an issue. What was an issue was tax breaks.
The finger thing means the taxes.
So according to the stunt coordinator for Furious 7, Spiro Razatos, which is a great name, first of all.
That is.
When they approached the studio of like, I've got this great idea for a stunt, and I've even found the perfect location to do it. And the studio like exec that they're speaking to is like, well, I hope that location is in Georgia. And it's like, why? Because Georgia offers the best tax breaks. And anyone who is like, you know, like passingly familiar with this subject knows that, oh yeah, Georgia, right? And if you've ever sat and watched a Marvel movie to the end, to perhaps see the end credits sequence, you may have noticed that right at the end, before you get like Nick Fury coming in and telling you to go to sleep, you have a little thank of like filmed on location in the state of Georgia. And that's because Georgia offers really great tax breaks, and it's to the point where movie studios will actively avoid filming on location if that location cannot be found in Georgia or created on a soundstage there.
And yeah, like it's one of those things of, I think it's similar in like New Zealand as well, right? That's why like
tax breaks, and the UK does
Lord
as
of the
well.
Rings.
Like a lot of films like get filmed on location in the UK. Canada is another one. Like the John Wick franchise, for example, was filmed largely on location in Canada.
But if something is filmed in America, the amount of times where you see like, even, you know, all the big films like Marvel and everything, it always comes up like, yeah, thank you for filming in Georgia or whatever it says, yeah.
And they just offer really, really good tax breaks there. And such good tax breaks that the studio did not want to film this stunt for real, even though Razatos had found a way to do it. And eventually they managed to bend the ear of a producer who was like, okay, why are you so insistent on filming this somewhere where we don't get tax breaks? Are you aware of how much studios love money? He's like, yes, but are you also aware of how much audiences like movies where things happen for real? Like, okay. It's like, trust me, it will be worth the cost because you will like make a quantifiable percentage more on the box office gross if you can put this stunt in the trailer.
So the stunt was done, put in the trailer, but then afterwards was like, no, fuck it, we need to get it out of the movie?
No, it's that they wanted to cut that like stunt in its entirety, and the only reason it got filmed is because Razatos was like, hey, I know you don't want to put it in the film, but if we do it, imagine how good the trailer's going to be when you can put this in as the money shot. The literal money shot, right? And they gave him like some money to go and do it, and then he came back like a little bit later and was like, okay, can I have some more money? I'm like, why? So I want to now throw some cars out of a plane. And they let them do that because nowhere offers better tax breaks than the sky.
Than the sky?
Well, the sky above Georgia, right? So that was a joke, but I'm assuming they just did that above Georgia somewhere.
Yeah, okay. I was like, is there a... Dude, we have a government for the sky that give even more of a tax break?
Yeah. It's a whole deal, right? The thing about like tax breaks and movies. And it like... For me, I enjoy learning this stuff because just I'm naturally curious, and like I, for example, will watch like, you know, the DVD extras for a movie. I need to go watch the Barbie one now because I didn't know about that shit. So I'm definitely going to track that down because that sounds fascinating. But it does kind of kill the magic a little bit. Is it for you, Lucas? When you know, for example, that why did they film this in Georgia? Well, they got better tax breaks. So did they not have like a location scout looking for a cool location? They did in Georgia. So
yeah, and yeah, it does like it ruins it in a sense, right? But I can also just understand because the amount of times I've watched a movie and seen like something like "Thank you for filming in Georgia" or something like that. You know, at this point I understand that just. It's something that kind of needs to be done for these ridiculous movies to be getting made.
With just like how inflated and like over the top the budgets are, yeah. And like the other thing that really makes you like just disillusioned to the magic of filmmaking is when you hear from like lower budget directors. Like there's an interview with Roger Corman where he talks about how how is it you made so many of your movies for so cheap? And his usual answer was, well, every penny that we had was spent on the movie. Isn't that how it is for all productions? Like, not always. For example, I've worked on productions where part of the budget went to redecorating the producer's office.
Yeah,
the audience doesn't get to see that, right? Or it goes on like, you know, gifts for stars or points on the back end or just like, you know, lining someone's pockets somewhere. Whereas on like a Roger Corman production, because every penny counted, every penny was used for stuff that was going to appear on screen. Because that's ultimately the only thing that matters, right? The only thing the audience can see is what you managed to film.
it is one of just those things, right, where just I get why they do it. People always move money around to try and, you know, justify random shit and stuff. Like, I get it, but it doesn't feel good when you're like, oh, well, what was the budget for this movie? It's like, well, half it was just to appease people.
Yeah, and I've done a video on that as well. I wrote a script for Today I Found Out, and we've also mentioned it several times on Fact Fiend. It's about Hollywood accounting, and that's just the way Hollywood makes it so that every movie they make, regardless of how successful it is, always comes up as a loss on paper. And the numerous ways you can do that are by just creating shell corporations. So, for example, let's say you're a movie studio, and you're making an Avengers movie. You make an Avengers movie, but you don't make the Avengers movie. What you do is you create a shell corporation, and that shell corporation makes the Avengers movie. And then you might be thinking, well, how is that any different? Well, that shell corporation now needs stuff to make the film with, like cameras. You have cameras, so now that shell corporation can lease the cameras from you. Of course, for an exorbitantly inflated price, but it doesn't fucking matter because the money's just going between two accounts that you own. But still, on paper, they now had to rent equipment. Similarly, when it comes to marketing, you could just market the movie yourself, or you could create another shell corporation. Now that corporation has to market the movie, and now it's going to enlist your services. You, of course, charge whatever the fuck you want because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And now the marketing budget is $50 million. And that's just one of the ways that you can just ensure that the movie costs so much money to make that on paper it never earns a profit. If anyone wondering, like, well, why would you want a movie to not earn a profit? If it doesn't earn a profit, you don't pay taxes. And because all the money spent is just staying in the same company, it doesn't really matter what it costs. You're effectively like, every dollar you manage to like launder, it is money laundering just in a legal way, every dollar you do this to is tax-free, baby.
You gotta give me back my floor. My customers are walking around in the pipes.
Hey, next time pay your bills.
But I don't want to.
Yeah, and presumably that is why the kind of Hollywood standard is when you look at a budget, imagine that exact amount of money got spent on marketing as well.
Yeah. That's why, and the marketing budget is always complete bullshit for that reason. Usually, like, the big studios just enlist the services of a company they also own. Sometimes a company they made for the specific purpose of marketing that movie, specifically so that they can run it into the fucking ground and ensure it never turns a profit.
And obviously, like, movies do still make profits. Like, there are some movies that, you know, like Avengers, for example, where Infinity War and Endgame, I think, cost like $500 million, but then between them got like $4 or $5 billion in return.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do this with, and that's why, like, you know, a runaway success will occasionally, like, there's sometimes the movie makes so much money it's impossible to like write off it all, but they try. And like I said, there's quotes from producers where it's like, yeah, just everything is written off. Like, they'll send gifts to the cast, they get written off. Like printing paper, written off. Like driving to get donuts and morning coffee, that's written off. The fuel, that's written off. Wear and tear on your car, that's written off. Every receipt is tallied so we can just make it cost money. And it also as well allows them to fuck over actors as well, because if an actor happens to have a deal in their contract for money on the back end and they get money on gross profits, I think it is, not gross revenue. Because if you do like all these tricks, the movie never technically turns a profit. So anybody with it written into their contract that they're entitled to a percentage of profits never gets paid out. But people who have like in their contracts are just points of total gross, they get their money back.
And again, this is different for the highest grossing movies of all time, but most movies don't earn a significant portion of profit above the budget for the movie and the budget for marketing, etc., etc.
Yeah, and I think like the most like bullshit example of this is the first Star Wars movie. David Prowse, Darth Vader, was promised money on the back end for being Darth Vader. And
the physical performer for Darth Vader, yeah. James Earl Jones was
James Earl Jones the voice, David Prowse was the physical performer, somebody else, Bob Anderson, I believe, did the fencing stunts, and there's like another dude who did some scenes, but, you know, David Prowse, Darth fucking Vader, at least a quarter of him, was entitled to, by all rights, a percentage of the profits on the back end. You think after 40 fucking years of Star Wars remaining culturally relevant and making the equivalent of like billions, when you consider like, you know, like merchandising and stuff like that, David Prowse would talk about in an interview before he died, like, yeah, every year I get a letter from Fox telling me that, unfortunately, Star Wars hasn't turned a profit yet, so I don't get paid. Every year I get that letter.
See, like,
that's how bad it is.
That one's a bit confusing because Alec Guinness talked about the fact that basically, like, he meant he never needed to technically work ever again,
because
right?
he got the better deal. Because he, as an established actor, and also one that they had to bring back, so they could easily replace David Prowse, he was promised points of the total gross. Not the profits. That's the thing. If the movie never makes a profit, they never have to pay out. Whereas if it's the gross, that's just how much money the film makes in total, regardless of if it technically on paper turns a profit or not. And there's some examples of like actors getting that deal and getting fucking paid. Like, for example, Danny DeVito, Ivan Reitman, and Arnold Schwarzenegger for the film Twins refused to take a salary. All three of them, and then split between them, I think, like 40%. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger got like 20, Danny DeVito got 10, Ivan Reitman got 10. Or something to that effect of the total gross. That movie cost $40 million to make, and it made like $200 million at the box office.
Because they didn't think it would be successful.
Not as successful as it could have been. Not as successful as it was. And the studio flipped their shit when they realised Arnold Schwarzenegger got paid $50 million for being in that movie.
Yeah.
Nice.